Hello, mortals. I'm the BookTube Goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. Now, the last time I reacted to another booktuber, I asked, who should I react to next? And several people said, the Bookish Realm. Well, I looked up the Bookish Realm, and I am already subscribed to her, but I never see her videos on my YouTube feed, so it's been a while since I've seen her. Thank you, YouTube. I don't know how YouTube's algorithm thing works, but it seems like I should get video feeds from people I subscribe to. Anyway, I do know she is a librarian, which gives her a unique perspective on books. And let's go ahead and take a look at her channel. Okay, the Bookish Realm looks like she has about 19,000 subscribers. Let's go ahead. See her uploads, her last uploads, 1.5, 1.6, 2K, 2.5K, 4.5K. Very respectable for BookTube. Let's go ahead and look at her video list. And let's sort by the most, or the oldest. The oldest. Right. Oh my God. Is this the same person? Okay. Well, the very first video was 4 years ago. So this channel at least has been 4 years in the making. Time travel book TBR. I'm curious. I am curious.
Hey booktubers, it's Ashley at Bookish Realm, and I am here with a top 5 Wednesday video, which I actually have not done in a long time. So I'm really excited to do this. If you guys did not know,
it sounds like she has older videos, because she just said that I haven't done this in a while or something. So maybe there's some videos that are privated or deleted, or maybe this is a second channel. I don't know, but let's keep watching.
Top 5 Wednesday is hosted by Lainey over at Ginger Reads Lainey, and I will put the link to her channel down below. Top 5 Wednesday is something that she hosts every week, and each week is a different theme, and you pick top 5 books that are related to that theme. This week's theme is your top 5 time travel books. Now, when I looked at this topic, I was kind of like, dang, I have not read as many time travel books as I would have liked, but there are a lot of time travel books that I would like to read. So instead of doing the top 5 time travel books that I have read, I have decided to do top 5 time travel books that I would like to read. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first book on my list is Dragonfly and Amber by Diana Gabaldon. This is the second book in the Outlander series. As you guys know, last year I read
the Outlander
series.
Series.
Loved it. I started Dragonfly and Amber, but I did not get the opportunity to finish it last year. And this series is one of the series that I wanted to continue with in 2006.
I've read one of the Outlander books, and it was okay, but I wasn't really impelled to read any more.
It is the story of Claire and Jamie, and she gets transported back into 18th century Scotland. Extremely fascinating story, historical fiction, romance, and time travel all mixed into one. The next book that I have on my list here is The Glass Sentence, and if you guys have never seen this cover before, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's like this transparent cover. And then underneath is this gorgeous cover.
Oh, that's pretty.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. Unfortunately, the second book I don't believe has as nice of a cover, but it was great for the first book. So The Glass Sentence by S.E. Grove is a time travel book that is very, very interesting. It is about a main character. She's a young girl. She lives with her uncle, I believe, and he is a cartographer, and he ends up getting kidnapped, and she has to leave the city of Boston to go looking for her uncle. And what's interesting about this is that the time travel takes place in between continents. So every time you leave a continent, it is a completely different time period. So you could have one continent that is
I like that.
in the 1700s and another one that is like 2065. I am extremely excited to pick this up. I haven't really seen a lot of this on BookTube, but I definitely want
Sounds
to get to
interesting.
this year. The next book on my list here, or more so graphic novel that I have that is included in time travel, it's not specifically around time travel, but it does have some time travel elements. And this is the sixth volume of Lock and Key, Alpha and Omega. I have read 1 through 5 and I absolutely love them. I just recently got this copy and I probably will be reading it this month to go ahead and close out my love of the Lock and Key graphic novel series, since it is only 6 volumes. If you guys did not know, Lock and Key is a horror based graphic novel series by Joe Hill and illustrated
Joe
by Gabriel
Hill,
Rodriguez. It's about this
son of
family
Stephen
that goes to
King.
this house, and in this house are a series of keys. And these keys all do different things, from opening up your head to changing your gender, and one specific key that is a time travel key. So I saw a lot of that in the 5th volume, and I'm sure that key will play
Was this
a
a
role
series?
in this volume
That
as
plot
well.
sounds so
The
familiar.
next book that I have here is
Of
on my Kindle,
course.
and it is The
I
Time
love
Machine by
Time
H.G.
Machine.
Wells. I have seen the movie several times. The movie, I think that was made in like the
The movie
early
is nothing like the
2000s,
book.
and it was absolutely great. It's about this guy who makes a time machine because his fiance ends up getting killed, and he kind of obsesses over the fact of trying to go back and change the events that occurred, and then he ends up moving forward into a time that he's
That
not
is a
really familiar
Hollywood
with.
plot
But I've heard
projected
great things about
onto
this. The movie was absolutely excellent,
the original
and
book.
I think it's time that I read a classic by H.G. Wells anyway. The next book that I have here on my Kindle that is time travel based is Dune by Carrie Corp and Lori Langdon.
She
This
said
takes
Dune.
place in Scotland as well, and a lot of times I've heard this described as the Outlander for the young adult crowd. I'm really excited to read this. I know some people who really like it. I know Sasha really loves it, and then there's some people who really don't like it. But it's the tale of these two girls who end up spending the summer in Scotland, and they're following the instructions of one of the girls' great aunts, and then they end up traveling through time in a world that's kind of like fairy tale esque, and it just seems like it has a lot of wonderful elements. So I definitely can't wait to pick it up. All right, guys, so that is it for my top 5.
Okay, this was very interesting. Ashley is a very personable person, but this video doesn't look anything like what at least her thumbnails look like in her more recent videos. I am curious. Let me know in the comments if you know when she actually started BookTube, because this seems like this is like in the center of her BookTube career, not center, but it feels like she's was on BookTube a lot longer than this first video suggests. And again, this video is 4 years old, and I don't know if some videos have been privated or deleted. But just looking at the thumbnails here, you can tell that suddenly they started getting a little more. I mean, these first couples just look like screen grabs. And then it looked like she started doing some. Is this the graphic of a book? But it's not until, let's say, 3 years ago that she started being more professional on the thumbnail game. Okie doke. Just scrolling through her thumbnails. Looked like she tried to do some branding with these little asterisk flowers. See, TBRs, wrap-ups. Okay. This is 1 year ago, which is about when I started BookTube. Actually, it's been a year and a half now. This is probably when I started looking at her videos or finding this channel. How to read more, 2020 reading goals. Okay, these are, typical booktube videos. Being a librarian, I knew she was a librarian. I knew there was something about Ashley, or the Bookish Realm. Okay, let's just go ahead and jump to her latest video. Let's just react to her latest video. Spirits with the Crew. Oh, what? That's 6 hours. Okay, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to, actually, reading your bookish assumptions about me. That could be fun. Because I think we'll find out a little bit more about Ashley.
Hey, y'all.
First of all, look at the difference between the video quality of that science fiction time travel TBR to this. Oh boy. And I like how the books sort of fill up her entire background rather than being so far back that you see like the white walls. So big change.
Ashley. I'm back with another video, and today, as you can see by
like
the title,
the lipstick,
we are going to be reading some bookish assumptions that y'all have about me. So,
like the intro. Oh, support her on Patreon.
I don't know who originally came up with this idea. I don't know where it started, but it was a fantastic idea. So shout out to whoever did it, because I'm super excited to be doing this. So this is our Patreon pick of January. As I always say, each month patrons get the opportunity to vote on a video that they would like to see me do during the month. And this one won for the month, but it came very close. We had to do another runoff. We had to do another runoff because it was between this and going over all my unread books, which I'm low-key happy that this one won, because that other video would have put me to shame. I'm just saying. So I actually went on Instagram, Twitter.
Just real quick, I like her energy because it's very low-key and very mellow and very welcoming. As you know, some of the people react to have very high energy and really come at you with all the tricks. But this is a nice change of pace. And that's not a read. I actually enjoy that.
And our patron Discord and asked, what are some bookish assumptions that you have about me? And you know what? There were some serious assumptions that went on. I'm going to go through as many of these as I can and as quickly as I can. And some of these are funny, some of these are really interesting. So let's go ahead and start. Contemporary and romance are your favorite genres. Okay. So just hear me.
It's my least favorite, but let's hear it.
If you know me, I read everything. There's not much that I won't touch, honestly, at this point, at all. Like, there are genres that I haven't tried, but I'm willing to try them. I love that. An open book when it comes to trying new books. I mean, if I don't like it, I don't like it. Like, that's the worst case scenario. But what I have found in the past year or so is that I lean heavily towards contemporary, which I think in the book community we say contemporary, but in my librarian mind I think we're talking about realistic fiction, which yes, realistic fiction and romance, I kind of lean heavily towards those two. Would I classify them as my favorites? I don't know, but we're headed in the right direction with that comment. You don't like tomes? No, it's not that I don't like tomes, it's that I need to prioritize reading more tomes. I definitely made that a goal that I didn't really speak of in my goals video, was to read at least one book over 500 pages every month. I've already done that for the month of January, so I've read one book that was over 700 pages.
It's good to know the definition of a tome.
I'm on the right track. It's not that I don't like
500
tomes,
pages.
It's just that I don't prioritize my time to read tomes, which I should. I really should. I really should. I'm an adventurous reader. Yes, I am an adventurous reader.
Speaking of tomes, I actually used to go out of my way to get the biggest book possible because I felt like I was getting more for my money, and I just really loved. Of course, we're talking about epic fantasy, sometimes even science fiction. Since that's my preferred genre, there are more tomes in those categories and other categories, but it's interesting to hear what a tome actually is. And also about favorite genres. Sometimes just in different phases of your life or even certain times of the year, you just feel like a certain genre. Like sometimes I just feel like I really want to read some horror novel. I'm tired of reading science fiction and fantasy. I just want to read something completely different, and I'll go to the fiction section. But anyway, that's interesting.
Reader, and I like the insta-love trope. I like the insta-love trope when it's done right.
Insta-love?
It's not
I hate the
done right
insta-love.
at
I shouldn't
all,
say hate.
but I've grown to appreciate it more because I read a lot of shorter novellas now, especially in the romance genre. This one's cute, that you have the best recommendations on the planet, and if I ever needed one, you give me such a good.
I would like to ask Ashley if she's read The Slipping Down Life by Ann Tyler, because that's sort of in insta-love, kind of, but it's kind of not. It's kind of completely puts the trope on its head. I mean, this is an old book, probably was written back in the 70s, but it's like this. Oops. Excuse that. But it's about a girl who carves the name of this rock star on her head, and the rock star is so impressed by this act that they become a couple. And it's kind of, I don't even know if you want to call it insta love, but I feel like it sort of twisted the whole genre. These two people are together for whatever reason, but they actually don't know anything about each other, and maybe they aren't quite compatible. That's always my thing about insta love. But anyway,
One that no one ever talks about. Well, hopefully I do give y'all recommendations of books that may not always be on your radar. I try to read a balance of well-known books and books that are lesser known, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Okay, you read super fast, and yes, I do read super fast. You coordinate your bookmarks with your books. No. No, I do not at all. I am a creative person, but I do not have the time to do that. You really love audiobooks. I do love audiobooks. Audiobooks really help me get reading done because I'm super busy. Like very, very busy. So audiobooks definitely help with that. And I read multiple books at once. That is the truth. On Goodreads right now, I am currently reading, I think, anywhere between 15 to 20 books.
wow.
And I'm not actively reading all those books at the same time. If we're talking about actively reading, I probably actively read 3 to 4 books at a time. But there are always in between 15 to 20 books queued on Goodreads that I have started or touched or whatever the case may be. The next one, you read fast and own over 100 books. Yes, I do read fast, like I said in that last one, and yes, I own over 100 books.
I think most of us on BookTube own over 100
You
books.
have a lot of bookmarks. I do have a lot of bookmarks. I just never show them at all, but I do own a lot of bookmarks. Don't get burnt out by books focused on Black trauma. I don't. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but they don't burn me out at all. Like, it's horrible, but they don't burn me out. Romance is in your top 2 fave genres. I don't like, do I really talk about romance that much? My channel? Like, do I talk about romance that much? I mean, I look at my numbers and they say I read a lot of romance, but do I talk about romance that much? Because you're talking to a creator who once like hated romance, like was very against reading romance. You've maxed out your library card and had to pay overdue fines, and you have a big plan to get baby girl her first library card.
Ashley Home Store's Mattress
Oops.
Marathon event ends soon. Click the link for your last chance to save up to $1,000.
Okay, so I have maxed out my library card. My library card right now is maxed out, and yes, I work in a library. Go to the library. I mean, this is where I work, and yes, I have had to pay fines. Yes, even as a librarian, I have not returned stuff on time. It's ridiculous.
I think librarians get a discount.
Her library card because she got one when she was like 3 months old, and her card is maxed out too. You will not dog ear your pages. Not true. I am an avid believer that once I pay for a book, it is mine to just, I mean, I write, I highlight, I make notation, I use sticky notes, I dog ear pages. I very much so am physically hands-on with my books, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea. Everybody doesn't like that, but I am not the type of person who believes that every book that I own needs to be kept in pristine condition by not writing it and not dog-earing it. Like, that's just not me as a person. You're a badass and you can't change my mind because I love your videos. Why? Thank you. I am glad that you think so. You prefer romance books you pick up more than critically acclaimed literature. What is the definition of critically acclaimed? Like,
Good question.
Who is to determine that? I don't mean to get philosophical on you, but what one person determines as critically acclaimed, I may just not see as critically acclaimed. And I don't say I prefer one over the other. There is no preference. I think that I just have a tendency to lean in more direction, but I don't know. That's the same thing as people say like my favorite genres. I don't know if I prefer one over the other. Okay, so I'm gonna actually include the name on this one because this is so interesting. There is a Twitter page out there called Droid Librarian, which I think is so cool. And they said this unit assumes you renew/return your items on time. I do not. Ever. Which is so sad to say because I work in a freaking library and I don't do it. I don't know how to explain that phenomenon, but none of us do, okay? Like, none of us do. Okay, next one is you read really fast. I do read really fast. You love books as a kid. Absolutely love books as a kid. When people visit your house pre-pandemic, they are shocked by how many books you own. Yes. The last visitors that I had here, well, the last visitor I have is a librarian, so I'm not going to count her, but prior to that, I had a group of friends visit and they were like, dang, you got your own library in here? Like, what? So, yes, I have had people who are shocked by the number of books that I own, but they also are not avid readers. So, it always is shocking to people who are not avid readers. My family, though, they're used to it. They're just so accustomed to it. But yeah, people who are not as accustomed to it, yeah, they're like, wow. But they like it. They think it's pretty cool.
Now, I don't have very many physical books anymore because I mostly read ebooks because, you know, my eyesight, it helps to be able to make the font larger. But I remember I visited a guy many, many years ago who had paperback, mostly science fiction, fantasy, wall to wall in all his rooms, up and down his staircase. It was insane. So nothing could surprise me after that of people that own a lot of books.
This one is funny. You read all day and don't work. I don't. I don't read all day. I have a full-time job. It is not possible for me to read all day. There are times when I'm in meetings all day, so no. Although it seems like I read all day, I wish I could read all day. I think that because I work on decreasing my sub-vocalization, which is when you're actually sounding out each word in your head. I don't know how to explain it, but it slows your reading process down, and when you decrease your sub-vocalization, it increases your reading speed. So, because I've been working on that, I do read faster, and it probably seems like, where do you find time to read all your stuff? But that's how. And also, take into consideration that I listen to a lot of audiobooks. My physical and ebook reading compared to my audiobook reading, they're split probably like 50-50. So half of my reading that I do through the month is audio, and I listen to audiobooks whenever I can, whether that's on the commute, cooking dinner, doing dishes, or, you know, hanging out with a little one. So take that into mind as well. But yes, I do have a full-time job.
Speaking about subvocalization, I know that's a way to do speed reading, is not to like sound out the words, but also to, when you speed read, is to look at phrases rather than word by word, just trying to do little blocks of text. And of course, you can't subvocalize that. But I kind of like to subvocalize, actually sound out the word in my mind. But it's interesting that she really wants to speed up her reading to consume as much as possible. So I wonder if her audiobooks are one-time speed or if she bumps that up.
Job, and I'm a parent, so no. Okay, switching over to Instagram. The first one, you have a killer middle grade collection. I do have a pretty decent middle grade collection, but y'all never see it because of the angle that I shoot my stuff. Most of my middle grade is back that way, and it's a whole section, like that whole section right there, all of that is middle grade. This is a good one. You feel guilty about your physical TBR. Yes and no. I go through reading processes that I don't show y'all on camera. Like, I don't do unhaul videos on camera, so you never really get to see me unhaul. But this collection is constantly shifting, and I have a coworker that loves to read as much as I do, so anything that I know that I'm not going to read or I've read and I'm like, I don't need to keep this, I pass along to her. Especially like if I get duplicate copies and stuff like that. I do feel like I need to read my physical TBR down, but I don't think I feel guilty about it. You have loved reading since you learned how to read. According to my parents, that is true. I have always been an avid reader. I broke off a little bit when I was in college because it was just harder for me to read for fun in college because of my major. I was a history major, so I did a lot of reading, like textbook reading, and also a lot of primary source.
Using Squarespace helped my business grow from a journal to
Took up a lot of my time, so I didn't read as much for fun, but of course I picked it back up again. You read with baby girl every day. That is absolutely true. We read every single day. She loves to read. She goes to her bookstore. Like, if I have a physical book in my hand at all, she immediately goes to her bookshelf and picks out one of her books and brings them to me to read. You only rock with hardcovers. Not true. I actually don't only rock with hardcovers. I prefer paperbacks because they're cheaper.
Me too.
I like hardcovers. They're very, very nice.
They're
Look
easier
nice
to
on your
transport.
shelves, but I don't have the pockets to buy hardcovers. A lot of the hardcovers that you see on my shelf have actually been gifted to me, whether through publishers or through friends or viewers. Like, I don't typically buy hardcovers myself unless it's something that I'm looking forward to. If a book is out of place in a bookstore, you'll put it right back in the right section. I do, and it's out of habit. That's library habit. I just do it. It is a habit. You rarely watch TV, if at all. I do watch TV, but rarely. I don't watch TV like that. I couldn't tell you the latest shows that are on TV right now. You've never read a Western. That is true. See, I would be willing to read a Western. I've just never read a Western. I don't know of many. I know of some, and I can't remember the author's name, but I see them in the library all the time. So I haven't read Westerns. We have a whole Western section in the library. Maybe I should pick one out and try it. You love all genres. That is very true. I love all genres, or I'm willing to try a genre, even like one that I haven't read. You'll read anything or at least give it a try. That is very true. That is very, 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 very true. You didn't always read diversely. This is a tricky question because if you're saying like I didn't read diversely, like in my
what's
life,
the definition?
I only read white, heterosexual, cisgendered books. That's not true. I grew up in a household where that wasn't allowed. Do I read more diversely now than I have in the past? Absolutely, because I always think that there's room to grow. But no, I won't say that I've never, that I didn't always read diversely. I think that the volume in which I do is much greater than it has been before. You get first dibs at library sales. Actually, I don't. When library sales happened pre-pandemic, I had to go just like the rest of the public. So there were no first dibs.
What are the perks of being a librarian?
Like first come, first serve. We don't care what affiliation you have with the library, which is cool. I mean, there's always, no matter when I went, like it was usually over the course of just one entire day. No matter when I went, there was always great stuff to pick out. All of your books are in good condition. They're not. Some of my books are not in good condition at all. Some of them are very much so secondhand, very, very old books. Some that published 20 plus years ago. So, yeah. You take notes as you read. When you audiobook, you write notes after you've listened to it. So I actually write notes as I listen. I have a whole notebook that I use to take notes when I am listening to an audiobook, or I use a notes app on my phone because I want to make sure that I have as much information as possible when I go back and I write my full-length reviews. So you are right. You're a good cook.
Why is she laughing?
When I want to cook. You can fly through a book easily. Yes, I can, depending upon what it is. If it's a romance book, middle grade, probably YA, or even just sometimes even literary fiction. Science fiction and fantasy, I do not easily fly through. I know that I have to pace myself out a little differently with science fiction and fantasy because of the world building aspect to it. Books that take place in our world, like within, you know, modern time, are usually a little bit easier for me to fall into, but fantasy and science fiction, I have to restructure my brain to function a little bit differently. You write in and highlight your like crazy in your books. I do. I love annotating my books. It is such a thing that I love because it's so fun going back and looking at your reactions that you had when you were reading the text. I'm reading one book next month, which will be in a video after this one, where I believe that I will be able to read my annotations and annotate my annotations type of situation. So that's going to be really, really cool. But that is a true assumption. It's hard for you to just read a book. The historian you is analyzing everything. Yes. That's what people don't realize. And I think that it's very, very hard for me not to analyze and make connections and learn something out of everything, even if it's not intended. I feel like every book has some form of social commentary in it, or historical commentary, political, environment, like some type of commentary is made in it, because in my mind, books are written from the experiences of the author. They come from something they've seen, something they've heard, and I have the habit of trying to figure out what those things are whenever I read books, and I'm drawn to books that make stuff like that easy to see within the pages of a book. But yeah, I can't help it. I can never just read a book and just read it. I always analyze it, which can be a good or a bad thing depending upon how you look at it. You hated reading classics in school. You are absolutely right. The only classics that I liked in school were probably Romeo and Juliet, The Yellow Wallpaper, and I think I had.
This is a real B&H customer story. Jack and Barbara, professional wildlife photographers and B&H customers.
I had to read The Color Purple in school, and I think those are the only ones that I liked. Everything else, I wasn't mature enough yet. I wasn't in the headspace to read books like that just yet. I'm guessing you're really well educated and have really discerning tastes. Well, thank you. That is a compliment. And the last one from Instagram was, you love science fiction. No. I'm new to science fiction, so I can't say that I love science fiction because I don't think I've read broad enough in the genre to say that. I am trying to expand and broaden my horizons in science fiction, so maybe in the next year or two I'll be able to say yes, that is a true thing. Okay, so these last few ones are from Patreon, and the first one says that you were a big reader growing up and you grew up in a family that valued reading. No. It's yes and no. So my family, they weren't readers, but they felt that it was important for me to constantly be reading. So in that sense, yeah, they did value reading, but I didn't grow up in a family that loved to read at all.
That's kind of interesting because most big readers come from a reading family. Because I know for myself, my father was a big reader of like mystery, detective, thriller type books, even though that's really not the genres I grew to love. It's like I would see him sitting in his chair reading his novel, which would, of course, make me want to find a book and, you mimic what your parents do, is what I'm saying. But, it's interesting that not everyone starts out that way.
That your best friends are fellow readers? Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's...
My best friends are not readers at all.
It's potluck who your friends are in that regard.
Someone if you find out that they don't read. No, because I'm surrounded by people who don't read, so it's not abnormal for me to continue to meet people who don't read. I think it's the other way. I feel like I get judged for how much I read, so...
I know that.
It's a completely different situation there. So the next one, you get most of your books from the library checkout. Yes, I do. Most of the books that I read during the month, that's the problem now, is that I read so much from the library and I don't read a lot from my own collection, which I need to kind of figure out how to change that, because that's not really good. Polyamorous romance wouldn't necessarily be your thing. Not true. I actually read my first polyam book last year and rather enjoyed it. And I have a polyam book that I'm lining up for February that I think I'm going to like as well.
I don't think I've ever read one, but I don't like romance.
And manga. Honestly, low-key, yeah. Yeah, low-key. I love the complexity of graphic novels, manga, and comics, especially when they're like these huge worlds. Like when you think about the complexity of like the DC universe and like Marvel universe, I can talk about that and nerd and geek out about that all the time. A book is more likely to be your favorite if it makes you sad rather than if it makes you happy. That is so true.
Really?
My top 3 books of 2020 all made me disgustingly sad or made me cry like a baby. You are right on point with this. It's so true. If a book is gonna make me sad and depressed, it's more likely to be one that I'm gonna give 5 stars to. Once again, I don't know what that says about me as a person. Okay, next one. You're in desperate need of a book on haul. Not right now. Not at this very second. I just did a wave of an unhaul maybe a couple of weeks ago. So not just yet, but probably in the next couple of weeks. You have no desire to be a writer, at least not now. Very true. I have no desire to write right now. I did when I was younger, but right now no, not at all. Being surrounded by books gives you a feeling of safety. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the person who wrote, they know me. They know me well. So yes, it does give me a feeling of safety. You love being a booktuber, but sometimes the pressure gets to you and you wouldn't mind taking a short break from it every now and then.
Oh, that's all booktubers. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I do get that feeling. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't feel like sitting in front of a camera, and I need to be better about drawing that line and saying, no, I'm not doing this today. Okay, next one. Most of the people you are close to in real life, family, friends, are not readers. Yes, very, very true. They're not. Let's see, the next one. You're not the biggest fantasy fan, but you'll read it on occasion. It's not that I'm not the biggest fantasy fan. I think I'm going through a dry spell of reading fantasy. I read a couple of fantasy books this past month, or in January so far. So I'm getting back into it, but I went through a very huge fantasy dry spell where like I wasn't feeling the urge to read a lot of fantasy. You have high standards for redemption arcs. I do. Oh my gosh, I do. I have very, very high standards for redemption arcs, like, because I can very much read a book and be like, I don't think that they should have gotten away with that so easily. A cover doesn't necessarily have to be pretty to intrigue you, but if it's interesting, you're more likely to indulge in a cover buy. Very true. I didn't even think about that my own self. Yeah, a cover doesn't necessarily have to be pretty. For me, I think it's more about of course the inside, what's inside of the book, because there are some covers out there that are absolutely gorgeous and the books are not good at all. But
Yep.
if the cover is intriguing enough, I am more inclined to pick it up. The next one is, you don't read a lot of translated works but would like to read more. Absolutely. That is one of my huge goals for 2021, is to read more translated works, and Yanni is a gem and is helping me navigate that right now as we speak. All right, and the last set is, you love the found family trope. I do love the found family trope because I understand what it's like to have people who are not your biological
Nobody likes throwing out fresh food that's gone bad. At Bosch, we care about quality
Bye, Bosch.
family, feel more like family than those who are truly related to you. You're not in the group that hates it when the spine of the book breaks. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not. It's easier to read when the spine is broken. And a broken spine, a book has been loved. I'm here to love and appreciate and indulge my books. Your book buying always ends up higher than the budget. Not true, believe it or not. Because I have a very strict budget, children are extremely expensive. Love my child, but extremely expensive. Because of that, I'm very, very mindful about my budget. A lot of what you see in my book hauls, as I always say, I get a lot of my books secondhand. A lot of them are not brand new. And a lot of my book hauls do end up being stuff that has been sent to me. So no, I don't spend as much as people may think that I spend in books based on what you see in my book hauls, which is very, very intriguing. Now, during the holiday season, I did indulge myself a little bit because it was a holiday season. My budget around that time, I was working with a little bit more, but usually during a typical month, nope, I'm not buying as much as you think I'm buying. And if I have a lot, it's because it's come from my secondhand bookstore, or I get them off of eBay, or I get them off of thrift book. You only read in English but wish you could read in more than one. Oh, you were so right. I wish I kept up with French. So I've been to France twice for school related stuff, and I used to be able to read decently in French and communicate decently. It wasn't fluent, but it was enough to get me by. And I have lost a lot of that, and I wish I could still read in French. And then in addition to that, I wish I could read in Spanish. And the very last one in this cluster is, you have at some point spilled a drink all over a book that wasn't yours. Absolutely. I have completely ruined a library book that I've had to pay for because I spilled a drink all over it. And of course, it wasn't my book. I don't talk about that much, but yeah, it has happened. Alright, y'all, so thank you so much to everyone who sent me their bookish assumptions about me. Some of these are, most of these actually, y'all, were pretty, like, spot on. Y'all know me very, very well, which, that's cool. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me.
Okay, so that was Ashley of the Bookish Realm, a librarian who is also a booktuber. I really, really like her energy. She just seems, low-key, down to earth. And it's kind of interesting what a librarian may look for in books and how they approach reading. And she seems to read an awful lot, certainly more than I do. Anyway, if you haven't heard of Ashley, the Bookish Realm, subscribe to her. I'll have links below to the full videos. And let me know the next booktuber I should react to. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.